Hello, my friends. If you've been in the instructional design space for any amount of time, then you've probably heard of learning experience design. And you've probably wondered how learning experience design is different from instructional design. So in this video, we will explore the differences and similarities between these two terms. Alright, so welcome back, or if you're new here, my name is Devlin Peck, and I help instructional designers like you learn new skills and land opportunities. And today we're talking about job titles, because our field definitely loves the job titles, and it can be really confusing if you're new. When I got into the field around 5 years ago, there were just as many job titles as there are today. Instructional designer, learning experience designer, learning architect, learning engineer, e-learning designer, the list goes on and on. I called myself probably all of them on my resume or on my website over the years, and my perspective has grown on it a lot along the way. So today we're talking about learning experience design versus instructional design specifically. This one seems to get a lot of discussion, and it seems to be somewhat controversial. People have different opinions about this. You may find if you do some research on it, but I've seen people get confused over this distinction, so I'll do my best to share some clarity, maybe get some discussion started. If you have an opinion on this, let us know in the comments, but we will explore this based on what these different people do. So learning experience designers design experiences to help people learn, as the name suggests. And they use human-centered design principles to do this. So generally, it incorporates a lot of like user research and knowing your audience, and not just what your audience needs, but also like just knowing what your audience cares about as a whole. And then also learning experience designers help people achieve specific goals, particularly goals that learning solutions can help people achieve. So use learning experiences to help people achieve something and do so in a human-centered way. So that's learning experience design according to most definitions. And instructional design. Instructional designers design experiences and resources to help people learn. So not only the experiences, but also the resources piece. And generally LXDs do the same. Instructional designers also research their audiences to determine who the audience is and what they need. So analysis is a big part of instructional design. At least any kind of formal instructional design process you'll learn. Whether or not people actually conduct that analysis in the real world is a different question, which we'll get into a little bit later. And then also instructional designers help people and businesses achieve specific goals. We're not just helping people learn for the sake of learning, we're helping people learn so that they can behave differently, perform better, and achieve things either in their own lives or for the organizations that they work for. So how are these two job titles or practices different? The short answer is that they're not, if you didn't pick that up from these definitions. But like I said, this may be somewhat controversial, so bear with me. I know people have different opinions about this, but here are some actual differences. Learning experience design has better semantics. So just looking at the titles alone, learning experience designer implies that you're designing learning experiences. It's in the title. Instructional designer, it has that instruction connotation, which like people don't really love. It's like, oh, I design instruction. It gives this image of like a one-way kind of facilitator where I'm just like lecturing at you. I'm delivering instruction to you. Whereas learning experience designer, it's more about designing an experience for the audience to go in and explore and like learn more actively. For all practical purposes, good instructional designers do design learning experiences and resources. They do design simulations and learning games and all sorts of things. But in the instructional design title is back from the 1940s or 50s. So learning experience designer is probably in the last 15 years or so, I would imagine. So instructional designer is an older title, but because of that, instructional design is a much more popular job title. So if we look at the Google Analytics information or the Google Trends information, trends.google.com is just a tool you can use to look at like the relative popularity between multiple search terms. So you can see here the blue line here at the top is the instructional designer search term, and learning experience designer is the red one. So this is just a good way to kind of gauge how much interest there is in a term. You can see it seems like the trend for learning experience design is rising a little bit over time, but instructional designer is just so much more popular of a term. And then if we look at it for instructional design versus learning experience design, the gap is almost even wider. So that's the reason I use the instructional designer job title. It's just because more people know what that is. It's a more established job title. So as a content creator, I want to make it easy for people to find my content. When people are looking into this kind of a field, they use the instructional designer job title just because of how much more popular it is. So those are some practical differences between the two. But learning experience designer or learning designer does sound better. The instructional piece isn't super pretty, so to speak. But again, essentially learning experience designers and instructional designers do the same thing. Good learning experience designers may do some different things than like not so great instructional designers, just like good IDs may do a lot better than not so great LXDs. So the job titles are pretty, you can replace them. And we'll explore this a bit more. I pulled up some job postings. I just looked up learning experience designer, and then I just clicked on like the first 3 on Indeed. I did this last time. I wrote an article about this like a couple of years ago. It's the same kind of deal. But if you look at the job titles, I just clicked the first 3 learning experience designer titles from different companies. So one we have here at Amazon. And yeah, right here in the job summary, you will work on instructional design projects that learning theory, instructional technologies, human performance tech. You're designing and developing learning solutions like e-learning. So these are, you could put instructional designer here and it would hold true exactly. Here's one for Contentful. Once again, yeah, you'll own the end-to-end design, development, and release of new learning materials like self-paced courses, video simulations, documents, job aids. So this courses part, that was like a big part of this movement away from learning experience design that I saw as well. It's like instructional designers don't want to design courses because, again, it brings to light images of these like self-paced info dump courses that are just pushing information on you. And learning experience designers kind of want to move away from that. They're like, we don't want to design these boring kind of passive info dump experiences. But in the real world, most instructional designers are doing that, just like most instructional designers are doing that as well. That's the state of the industry right now. So whatever you call yourself, that's kind of the state of our industry. And any job listings I look at kind of reinforce that. Here's the third one I just opened up. Once again, the learning experience designer. This one is for Visa, I believe. Yep. Apply your expertise in instructional design and excellence in modern learning experience production. What I do like about these job listings, it does mention, you will research how different users are leveraging our platform. So it does emphasize that user research piece, but this is emphasized as well in instructional design postings. Again, good instructional design, you're going to be very in touch with your audience, figuring out who they are, what they need, what you can do to best serve them and help them accomplish their goals. Whether or not that happens in practice is a different story. Now, great IDs and good ID teams, just like great LXDs and good LXD teams, they're doing this. They're talking to their audience. They have a good system in place. They're achieving business goals and moving metrics, but this isn't really the norm from everything that I could tell. So let me know if you have a different perspective on that. Would love to hear it. Again, this is just from my understanding of the field and where we're at, but I know I've met some people who are adamant that they are different, but my experience with that has been they're not very familiar with instructional design and the history of instructional design and what good instructional design looks like, because they are very similar. So why 2 titles? So I've been hinting at this for a while, but from what I can tell, learning experience is a brand of instructional design, and it's why they're kind of separating themselves from traditional instructional designers. So like I said, people see in this instructional design work, it's very info dump heavy, not super engaging. It's very traditional and kind of stale and not very human centered. So I see people seeing that and they're like, I don't want to design those kind of experiences. Like I don't want to associate myself with this boring kind of learning experiences. I want to do something better, something more modern, something that's designed better, that feels more like a modern web experience than some kind of courseware from the 1990s. And so some people take that a step further and they're like, I'm going to call myself something completely different. And I did this. When I was a master's student, I was playing around with all sorts of titles. The first title I had on my resume on my website was learning experience designer, because I had that same reaction. I was like, yeah, I can use the technology well. I'm learning the visual design skills. I want to like tie it all together and design these really user focused, human centered experiences. But Like I said, eventually I shifted back to instructional design because I'm like, that's the term everyone knows. That's the term everyone uses. I don't want to kind of reinvent the wheel here. But for all practical purposes, the titles are interchangeable. As you saw in the job postings, the people you talk to, if they call themselves learning experience designers, they're doing the work of an instructional designer and vice versa. And again, leave a comment if there's some kind of meaningful difference that I'm not seeing here. Which title to use? So again, if you want to be found easily and you want the most amount of people to know what you're talking about or what you're referring to, instructional designer is a good title to use. If you want to brand yourself with a more modern title and kind of separate yourself from instructional designer, maybe you decide to go with that learning experience designer title. I'm not here to gatekeep any titles or to tell you what you can and can't use. If you're on LinkedIn, use all the titles, put them all as the keyword optimized for all of them, because you want to show up in as many searches as possible, and the skill set you have is the same no matter which title you're using. If you're applying to jobs, same thing, use the title on the job posting. If you're tailoring your resume for specific roles and you're putting your job title or what your headline or whatever it is, just use what it is in the posting to stay more consistent and use the language that the people who are looking to hire you are using. One more thing about that. We have, like I said, we have all sorts of job titles in this field. It's something I found. We play semantics with a lot of things. It's been that way since I got in the field 5 years ago, and it was probably like that 20 years before that. It'll probably be like that for many, many years to come. But key reminder here, maybe we all know this, but changing our title isn't going to change the field. We can only do that with our actions and the quality of our work. So, I mean, this is probably ironic. I'm recording a video about these differences. And I'm like, we should just focus on doing great work. But I know this is something that confuses people, which is why I'm recording this one. But that's the thing. It's like, well, it doesn't really matter what we call ourselves. If learning experience design picks up more, sure, we're all learning experience designers. But at the end of the day, we still need to do good work, and we're going to need to do good work no matter what title we're using. So for now, I'm using instructional designer just because that's historically what we've been. I don't see a need to change. It's just, if we're going to change something, it should be in how well we know our audience, how well we're serving them, that sort of thing. So that's where I'm at with the whole titles debate or situation. But next steps, thanks for making it to the end here with me. Next step for you is to get out there and design some great learning experiences. So that's what it's all about. Like I said, get out there and do some great work, share it with all of us to see, and drive the field forward that way. And if you do want some help designing those learning experiences, I do have a very 48-minute long comprehensive video about how to design effective e-learning, and I'm building a whole playlist around that. So if you want some help along the way, feel free to check that out, and I will see you in the next video. Once again, thanks for hanging out here with me until the end. See you soon.